Hello, I'm Brian Fox. Welcome to I Hate Rock Music. And this video is going to be about a band I really love. Another one of those bands from 1968 that is one of my favorite records of that year. And my top albums of 1968 will have a lot of commonalities with a lot of people, but I have a lot of records, like the Graffiti record, that are my top albums for 1968 that probably don't appear on a lot of other people's lists. And this is one of those bands. They came out of Toronto, and they used to be called the Influence of Sadness, and it was a little too heavy, so they just changed their name to Influence. So the band is Lewis Campbell McKelvey on vocals and guitar, Dave Wynn on drums, Jurgen Peter on guitar, Jack Geisinger on bass, and Andrew Kyler on vocals. And later on, they added Bob Parkins on keys and Walter Rossi on guitar. So they ended up having a pretty big lineup with two guitars, and they really took advantage of it. Walter Rossi, of course, ended up joining the Buddy Miles Quartet, and also ended up in the power trio called Charlie. A lot of people are familiar with that. So he's kind of a known quantity. Andrew Kyler ended up uh, uh, moving from the UK to South Africa, and that's where he met Lewis Campbell McElvoy, who was also from South Africa, and then moved to London. And then Jurgen Peter, the other guitar player, was from a notorious garage band called The Haunted, and Jack Geisinger on bass was also in the Buddy Miles Quartet. So two of the members ended up touring with the Buddy Miles Quartet, and that's how a lot of these guys met. And so they ended up putting together this band that had a whole bunch of different influences and a lot of different musicalities, and of course, having members that were born in Ireland and then moved to South Africa and then the UK, and just a real hodgepodge of influences. So they all got together in Montreal in 1966 is when McElvoy moved there and started putting together this band. And weirdly enough, the Influence album, as weird as it is, actually made number 82 on the Billboard charts, which is really pretty crazy. And at one point, they were so exciting and so influential that Columbia offered to buy them out from ABC Records, but that never really happened. So anyway, June 1st, 1967, the Influence did their first show, and then went to New York to record their album. And then in January 1968, the very beginning of the year. So in essence, it's actually from 1967, which is even more mind-boggling. But the album came out on ABC Records. They did a U.S. tour and played with bands like The Doors, Blood, Sweat and Tears, Procol Harum, and Steppenwolf. So they did some pretty major shows, and it kind of whets my appetite to realize that the show they did in Chicago at the Electric Theater with Steppenwolf was actually recorded. So there's a live tape of this band out there, which really, man, I would love to hear that because they are really a very unusual band. So once they got off their U.S. tour, they started losing members, and then still hung around Toronto and did a lot of shows, and then they broke up in early 1969. And that's where Walter Rossi once again joined up with Buddy Miles Express before later joining the band Charlie. So what a band! It's hard to even describe their music. For fans of Zappa and Beefheart, which I'm a huge Beefheart fan and a big Zappa fan, this band is right up there with them. The landscape that they create all over the record has got a lot of weird rhythms, a lot of Beefheartish kind of rhythms. The two guitar work is excellent, and they just have a really strange sound when they get into their originals, and then they have lots of weird humor. Um, a lot of the stuff kind of reminds me of the Hampton Grease Band as well. Very dark humor, very interesting oblique lyrics, and then just a lot of wackiness going on throughout the record, interspiced with all these incredible, weird originals. And to say they're original is an understatement. There certainly isn't any other bands around besides Beefheart that sounded like this in 1967. And then there's a lot of wackiness and voices and inside jokes, and and weird sound collages and things like that that remind me of Zappa. And then at the end of the record, they rip through a really short, frenetic version of Tutti Frutti, just to have one final laugh before the record ends. But they they are truly one of a kind. Thankfully, it's available on CD as well now, so you get a really nice, clean mix of it. But the LP sounds great. It was recorded really well, and just an exceptional band. So, as I mentioned, if you're a Zappa Beefheart fan, this is a must-have, and it's totally under the radar. And once again, it shows that ABC, besides the James Gang, had a number of really interesting bands on their label. They did a lot better than a lot of the labels as far as signing so-called underground bands in 67, 68, and 69. Influences at the top of that list. One of my favorite records, um, definitely of the 60s, and an incredible band. And they just don't come any wackier. So anyway, as usual, it's posted below. Check them out. I'm sure somebody out there is going to like it as much as I do. At least I certainly hope so. Truly one of the greats. And boy, it would have been fantastic to get a second or third album out of them with and further develop this sound that they had, because obviously they had a lot of music in them, and this was only scratching the surface. So anyway, check it out. I'm Brian Fox. Thanks for watching I Hate Rock Music.